great friend of the festival, was a juror on the SDG Lions this year from We Believers, Gustavo Lauria, and his partner, Marco Vega. Thank you very much.
My name is Gustavo Lauria. He is Marco Vega, inventor and lead developer of the edible six-pack rings. And we both are co-founders at We Believers. One of the best things about people, advertising people trying to do innovation, in my opinion, is that we don't have a clue about it. You know, that's why we go for it. Whatever it is that in our minds makes sense for a brand, for the people, for the world, or at least to win a couple of lions, it's something that should be possible and we should push for it and make it happen. That's because we don't have the knowledge that scientists and engineers have to understand the limitations that we have in front of us. Actually, Marco, he used to work as an engineer in P&G a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, his fault. And he knows a little bit more about it than me. I'm just, like this kind of environmentally concerned, kind of freakish guy who think about our impact in the world 24/7 every single day. That's why one day I started sending, like a lot of text messages to him. I was in Atlanta shooting a TV spot. He was in South by Southwest. And at that point, I was in front of these big black plastic bags, full of plastic, like plastic utensils, plastic plates, as a result of the lunch that we had with a very small crew. We were less than 50. The same kind of plastic bags that we see all the time in New York, like in every single corner, every single block. And every time that I see those bags, the same questions come to my mind. How is it possible, like that we produce that much trash? Where that trash go? Like poor animals. If it goes to the ocean, all of a sudden, all of this plastic shit that we send comes along. So the feeling is horrible. I don't know if I'm crazy or what, but every time that I see those big black plastic bags, it takes me immediately to the big black plastic bags that police use for the dead bodies. Or at least it gives me that horrible feeling in my gut. So I grabbed the phone, I was thinking about it, finding excuses to think. The client was next to the monitor and I was walking back and forth, going for a tea. I love tea, but I had way more than what I needed. Thinking about ideas, and all of a sudden that thing came to my mind. And I grabbed the phone, I sent him tons of text messages saying, Marco, here we have the real text messages, screen grabs. I sent him the picture of the turtle with the plastic ring around it. And I said, Marco, I'm done with plastic. I think that we should do something about it. What if we create a replacement for plastic? Like for the plastic things that at some point end up in the ocean and kill animals. For example, the plastic rings. Like what if we create six-pack rings to feed animals instead of killing them, made of some kind of material that they can eat. And I sent that picture, the one of the rings, saying, these rings, this kind of thing, picture made of this, that's seaweed, like kombu seaweed. So I sent the images and the idea kept growing in my mind and I kept sending more and more and more and more messages nonstop.
Yeah, he really likes to send you like those kind of messages when that is the brief. And this was like a very, very clear brief coming from creative.
Well, this is like some kind of marriage when you have one partner, and the good thing is I can come up with ideas, and the bad thing is I send them at 2 a.m. in the morning sometimes. Yeah. His wife is not happy with it.
No.
So I kept sending messages, I was very excited saying, it will be amazing, send. Imagine if we do it right and we scale it, we will be able to save thousands and thousands of lives. Send. Plus, it could be a great branding campaign, for a brewing company. Send. Because if, instead of doing this typical stupid, beer advertising jokes, will bring a solution to solve a problem that the beer industry is a big part of it. But making a statement for all the other brands to follow by producing something and making things happen. So I kept sending messages, and then Marco answered.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually at South by Southwest. That morning, we were launching our creative booster called We, supposedly, to go after this crowded space full of incubators and startups where usually they're focused on operations and finances, and they forget about the idea, right, the storytelling. Little did I know at that evening that he was going to hit me with this idea, and the only creative idea that we were going to boost for the next 3 years was going to be that brief. And I was actually sitting with a partner of one of the largest private equity funds for Latin America for startups, and I was showing him all these text messages saying, this is what happens when you have a place where you put engineers, consultants, and creatives to try to come up with those solutions that actually can change the world.
So in my mind, it was very simple, in my ignorant, creative mind. It was as simple as let's use kombu, like kombu seaweed. Not because my girlfriend used to use kombu for whatever it is, soup, stews, whatever. For a different reason. Kombu is like a square. So I was thinking, what if we make 6 holes? Like 6 holes?
This guy, yeah.
And we have a six-pack holder right there, nothing else, like 6 holes. It will work, it's seaweed, so it will be natural, biodegradable, really easy to compost, and sea animals will love it because it's seaweed. So then we have a call with this guy that Marco knew since a lot of time ago, Koji. He's some kind of creative designer, has a lot of experience developing packaging for McDonald's. I think that was McDonald's.
At Leo Burnett, yeah.
And we shared the idea with him, and this guy said, you guys have an amazing idea, I really like it, awesome, it's really, really good, but it doesn't work. Let's go to the next one. If it works, ping. It doesn't work, like the
creative engineer.
Yeah. It doesn't work, because when you take, he said, when you take seaweed out of the water, it gets dry. So it becomes very fragile, very easy to break. So it will not be a good solution to hold the cans. Plus, yes, it's great to feed animals, but at the same time you were stealing, like their food from the ocean. So no, guys, it doesn't work. Don't keep going for it. And that was the first struggle of a really long list of struggles that we have during the whole process.
But all this was happening like in real time. I mean, those texts that you saw, that was on a Monday. I had like a week, like in the next 5-6 days, I was calling folks in Japan, in India, in Singapore, in the UK, in the US, to try to see what were the constraints, what were the opportunities, what was out there that we could like grab onto and make this a reality. And we very quickly found that there was nothing there. I mean, there were some promising prototypes, but were not scalable or were not going to resist what we needed to do with the cans. And a little did I know that the perfect partner was going to be in one of the most unexpected places.
You keep it. Yeah. So working with Koji, this guy that said the idea doesn't work with seaweed, working together, the three of us, we came up with a much better solution. The idea was to replace seaweed with the byproducts of a brewing process. In the end, it will be barley and wheat. It's edible, like sea animals will be able to eat it. Again, like by using the fibers, we can produce, like some kind of cardboard to hold the cans. And by being barley and wheat, it will be biodegradable, really easy to compost, and edible. That the edible thing was kind of key. In my mind, it was kind of key for the story. But the other thing, and then we realized that it was even more important, because what happened when the plastic rings end up in the ocean, sea animals eat it, and they die because their digestive system get clogged. So the fact that they can, like actually digest it was very, very important. So those are two saints, our two saints, like we were ready to present the idea to the client. Saltwater Brewery, they called us a couple of months before asking for a campaign. It was a perfect client for this idea. Like they are a very small brewery. They are independent. They could be a perfect challenger, the perfect underdog for all the big brands. And they are from Delaware Beach in South Florida, so they are very close to the ocean. Their target are surfers, fishermen, people who love the sea. So we presented the idea to Chris Go. The president is a saint that you see on the left, on the right. And Chris Go saw the idea right away. He loved it. He approved it in the same call. He was 100% on board. And being honest, we didn't even know if this whole thing will be totally doable or not. But he said, let's go for it. Then the other saint is Francisco, this very young, 27-year-old Mexican engineer. He was playing already with some edible stuff, more precisely with sugarcane.
Yep.
With sugarcane, he was doing this project for a Mexican zoo. So we hired him, and he was the one developing the first 500 prototypes for us, together with Marco, together with Koshi. They did it in only 2 or 3 weeks instead of 3 or 6 months.
That's because we did not know that you could not do it in 3 weeks, that it should take like 3 or 6 months.
And so they did that just with a plastic mold made with a 3D printer instead of a typical aluminum, because it will take so long with the aluminum and it will be way more expensive. Yep. Then they use like a regular home, like basic oven and a hydraulic press. So we had the 500 prototypes. We had a video that we put together, and we were ready to share it with the world. And long story short, I'm forgetting, I'll go for it. Long story short, the edible six-pack ring became the most viral campaign in the history of the beer advertising industry in 5 days. That's a drawing. The marine biologists really helped us. We hired this group of marine biologists that were the ones giving us advice about the formula in a way, and they tested some of the prototypes with turtles at Acumal in Mexico. So that's the beginning of a story that we feel very, very proud of.
So when we launched the original video, we're really, really proud about, of course, the potential of the environmental impact that the edible six-pack rings can have. But we're also very, very proud of the impact that this already has had with Saltwater Brewery. It has changed Saltwater Brewery forever. I mean, just in these 3 years, the volume for Saltwater Brewery has gone 6 times. It has grown 6 times. These guys grew their footprint, their distribution footprint, with 8 different distributors all across the state of Florida. If you want to take a look at what was happening really with the effect of the edible six-pack ring, this 640% increase in volume, most of it was the canned beer for saltwater. 17% was coming from draft, 640% came from cans. And in terms of sales, you're talking about a business that we took from $1.4 million when they called us to $15 million for this year. And they actually cannot grow more because they maxed out the capacity of the brewery. So they're actually building a new brewing facility that hopefully will be ready by the end of 2019, 2020. It'll be 10 times the production capacity that they have today. The potential of sales for Saltwater Brewery will be close to $150 million. If we take a look at, maybe a valuation on just taking 1 year sales, then you're talking about a potential valuation of $15 million today to $150 million in the future. And that's not even counting the goodwill of what the Saltwater Brewery brand is now worth, because it is a beacon for the beer industry to follow. What also was key is the people, right? It was the team from yes, certainly the agency, but the client, the engineers, the designers. We truly believed that we had a strong solution in our hands. And when you truly believe in something, great things and people follow. And that's exactly what happened. When Chris Gove accidentally put this video on his put the video on the personal page, just introducing the potential of the edible six-pack ring, within 2 hours, he had 5,000 Facebook shares. At that moment, we kind of freaked out, no? Because we
jump in. He didn't even let us know that he will post the video on his personal Facebook. And he sent me a text message. Again, text messages are our thing. He sent me a text message saying, we have 5,000 shares in 2 hours. So we jump in. We don't have, like a PR agency. We don't have PR people inside of the We Believers. We didn't have any media dollars. We are an independent agency, small, 30 people,
35.
Engineer, creative again. 35 people. And any media dollars, like with this independent brewery. But we grab our computers, our laptops, we use Google. We did some research for some hours looking for editors, writers who are focused on sustainability in plastic pollution. And we send emails one by one.
65,
saying, like, hey, Amy, we love your article. We are reading, I don't know how many articles. We love your article about plastic pollution in the Caribbean Ocean. Please check this video. We think that you will love it. Send, Goose. Not even We Believer. Well, people think that We Believer may be something else because of the name, not an agency. And like that, one by one, very tailored messages and
in the first 21 days after we socialized this video, then of course the news outlets in social media just took it, edited, make it their own, which is one thing that you really need to do. Is if you're totally transparent, just let it go and let people run with that story. Be truthful to what you're trying to do. We got 145 million views just on these 4 different outlets. The other thing is, we actually then got all this, different coverage. I really don't want to talk about the impressions. Although it certainly was in the billions, we feel that that is something that, in terms of a standard, we really need to get a better grasp on what are really impressions for creative effectiveness. At the end of the day, they are not even in any annual report that I know of when any companies go to stakeholders. So I think that creative effectiveness should be about the sales, should be about what you really do to the business. The other stuff is that we have to consider that this didn't happen by accident. It was at the right time. When you take a look at a search for edible six-pack rings before us introducing the edible six-pack ring, no one had ever searched for edible six-pack rings or whatsoever. More important, the conversation around plastic pollution. We can see that it was starting to grow. But when we launched this, we were actually driving the research, the searches in Google around plastic pollution. Then, of course, plastic pollution and oceans took off. And when we launched the the edible six-pack rings at a mass scale, we also got another beautiful spike. When the mass scale production of the edible six-pack rings happened earlier this year, when Saltwater actually was able to go statewide, Whole Foods, Total Wine, Publix, they gave them premium space for free. That was like $150,000 value of these guys actually jumping on board on the movement. When's the last time that you get a retailer trying to hop on board of what you're trying to do? And of course, the other thing that was very important is once you get this cat out of the bag, you really have to continue informing people that this is actually true. And we even got then an extra 50 million views on folks that were covering the story that now the edible six-pack rings were out in mass scale. Fast Company selected the edible six-pack rings as a world-changing idea in 2017. The World Economic Forum has singled out the edible six-pack rings as a viable, scalable solution for the world to take a look at. And the other stuff that I think that is important is, this is to what you were saying earlier on, Phil. I mean, this was an idea that was born from the Innovation Lions. It won a gold in innovation, and we went the whole cycle, and that's when we introduced the idea to the world. It went the full cycle to creative effectiveness. According to the jury, we lost the Grand Prix to AlphaGo, so I don't feel that bad about that with Google, but...
I feel a little bit bad about it.
Well, yeah, but... the creative, the engineer, yeah. And then, well, this is, yeah, the Fast Company that we were chosen as a world-changing idea, the World Economic Forum singling us out. And National Geographic also in this issue, they chose 4 pretty scalable solutions, and we were featured on that thing as well. Now, that is Saltwater Brewery. Now, this is like the icing on the cake on this whole thing. When we sat down with Saltwater Brewery, when we saw that they had $100,000 to produce a campaign, what we said is, let's put $100,000 into the content, into producing things. We'll get a nominal fee for the work that we're going to be doing, but we will keep the intellectual property. And lo and behold, Edible Six-Pack Ring is an offspring. It's from We Believers. It is now a company based out in Mexico. We've started the mass manufacturing of the Edible Six-Pack Rings at 1 million rings per month, which is really nothing for the demand that is out there. We partnered with the original engineers. That 27-year-old engineer is today the chief operating officer of E6PR. And we also partnered with some pretty savvy investors in the beer vertical that know how to bring stuff on the mass scale. So it continues to be about collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Other breweries are now using the Edible Six-Pack Rings all across, whether other places in the US, Australia, South Africa, and we even have Solomon Islands. We didn't even know where the Solomon Islands were until we had to send a pallet to the Solomon Islands. And there's actually some kombucha players also as well now jumping on board. In our contact page, we've had over 250 breweries, small, medium, large. All the major players have reached out to us, and we're working with them at in different scales. It is very different when you take a look at what does it take to put the Edible Six-Pack Rings at 180 cans per minute versus 700 cans per minute versus 2,400 cans per minute, which is what Anheuser-Busch or Coors or Heineken would be needing to. We've patented, of course, the Edible Six-Pack Rings, the formula, the design, and the machines that you will need to actually apply the rings. And the potential is pretty phenomenal. You're talking about 5.6 billion six-packs used just in the US. 1 billion of those are in craft. This means that there is a potential just in the US alone of around $250 million for craft, for six-packs. And finally, this is a game of patience and perseverance. I mean, you have to take a look at where you are when you started. I mean, the initial 100 prototypes were $5 per unit. Then we went with 500 that were at the $1 unit range, and today we are at 25 cents more or less on market. I think that we are now on track in 2020 to have about 50 million in revenue for E6PR. But it just really depends from us continuing with the idea and to close the gap to what is going to happen in 2030 as the sustainable packaging industry hopefully grows into a billion-dollar industry.
But in our opinion, talking about 2030, there's something that is way more important than making billions of dollars. If we don't jump in and we don't find solutions to make the sustainable development goals happen by 2030, we'll be pretty much screwed, especially when it comes to pollution, when it comes to climate change, to responsible consumption. This year I was honored to be part of the jury, the first ever United Nations jury in the new category at Cannes, together with, there are a couple of more people here that were part of a jury, Claudia, Ariana, Maher, from the United Nations. It was a very diverse, very talented group of people, and believe me, I learned a lot. It was very eye-opening for me because I felt that I saw the best and the worst that advertising people can give, like the passionate and the opportunistic. And what it was very clear for me, one more time, was that nowadays we have the opportunity to do something much bigger than just, like selling, than just doing advertising, than just, even building brands. We can do all that by doing good for real. It is time to push our clients, to move things, to create stuff that we can scale instead of doing one single shot, like PR stunts. Stuff that people will talk about, will share it, and will feel very proud and eager or be proud of it. We are a very small agency, and we made it happen with a lot of passion because we truly believe in it. And that's a very important point. If you're planning to put your money, your effort, your talent, your hours, your nights on something, you truly believe on it, because if not, it will be impossible. Even if you are lucky enough and you win some lions with it, then you will not continue. And to me, the final message is that we shouldn't do work for the sake of winning awards. This is not about lions. This is about polar bears, whales, like the air that we breathe, our everyday food, and a common ground for the future generation. So thanks for believing. This is it.